Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Amy Burkett. For every city, there are those moments, both good and bad, that we all remember. Events that bring us into the spotlight, whether we want it or not. And Charlotte's had its share lately. The Democrats holding their national convention here 4 years ago, the Panthers playing in the Super Bowl last year, and most recently, the police shooting that set off street protests and rioting in Uptown with national audience watching. Carolina Impact's Jeff Saunier is Uptown with more on how others see Charlotte and how we see ourselves.
Well, yeah, we all watched it on TV in September, and no, it wasn't pretty here in Uptown Charlotte. Right before our eyes, the Queen City turned into the Mean City, the send in the troops to intervene city, the protests like we've never seen city.
Why don't you tell the police chief to release the videotape? They're killing and shooting us, huh? They're shooting us.
The crowd was much larger than they had expected. They had a bullhorn.
Where's the damn video at?
It must have been, gosh, I know 500 or 600 people who were gathered down there in Marshall Park at that time.
But Pastor Dwayne Walker says the marchers who started the night here at the park and then moved to his nearby church on the edge of Uptown, they weren't looking for trouble. They just wanted their police department complaints and their city hall complaints to be heard by the entire city, loud and clear.
Black Lives Matter.
There was an outcry. And then where there's already some lack of trust in our police force anyway, then that did not help the matter at all.
Everything kept moving down the street, and the next thing we knew, there was about 800 to 1,000 people right out here in front.
And Matt Allen, who manages the Hyatt House Hotel, he says that's when things started to get ugly.
We had some guests that were peeking out through the windows and everything, and then some would start hitting the windows, and then it just escalated from there. They started picking up bricks from the outside and just started throwing them at the windows and breaking all of them. So
I think what was kind of jarring, I guess is the word I would use, for folks who live in Charlotte, is what they saw wasn't a Charlotte that they were really familiar with.
Well, Jeff, I think what you saw is we boiled over as a city.
Michael Smith is president of Charlotte Center City Partners, which works with the Charlotte Chamber to promote Charlotte's image.
We are an inclusive community. Everyone gets involved, everyone feels the ability to have a voice, then everybody's voice is listened to.
The truth of the matter is, we have had our hand forced, and we've been forced to look at ourselves and to look at what we haven't done well. And no matter how much we've tried, we failed at this stage.
And what the rest of the world saw happening in Charlotte in September and what triggered it, well, that's more than any Charlotte image campaign can fix.
There's a group that's been left behind, and that's the group where Charlotte can do better work. And what was highlighted on TV is a small percentage of our community, but it's a part of our community that's the most fragile and that would benefit from an intense focus.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want now? What do we want? Justice!
I understand the lack of trust in the police department, but in this case, because it was a black citizen shot by a black police officer who was defended by the black police chief, it doesn't really sound like racism.
Really? Okay.
It does to you.
Well, the thing is that when we think about racism, we say, well, because another black person was involved, then it couldn't be racism. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. You know, racism is not just about black versus white. It's a matter of a system and how people are dealt with differently, how there are double standards that are applied when black people are involved.
A lot of us before September thought what happened in Ferguson, what happened in Baltimore would never happen in Charlotte. Do you think we'll see more protests in the future?
If there's no change, and I think there's going to be some change, something that has been horrible, and maybe something good will come out of it.
Something's happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear.
Which brings us back to the sidewalk outside Matt Allen's then battered and boarded up Hyatt House Hotel. the day after the protesters moved out. That's when the artists moved in.
You know, let's see how creative you can be, and let's, you know, try to bring the city back to normal. And from there, it took off. There were so many people that I talked to that came out here that said, you know what, I don't protest. I'm not going to get out and march the streets, but this is one way that I can get involved.
1,000 people in the streets singing.
There was even a gallery showing in South End featuring the protest art, as Charlotte seemingly embraces the problems it faces.
Think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
In reality, you know, we're probably not quite the Queen City we thought we were before September, and we're certainly not the mean city we look like during September. So going forward, well, how about this? How about something like Charlotte, the somewhere in between city? Amy?
Thanks, Jeff. By the way, if you're interested in seeing more of the protest artwork created on those boarded up windows at the Hyatt House Hotel, the Levine Museum of the New South on North Tryon Street is planning an exhibition. And the hotel itself will permanently display one of the largest protest artworks in its lobby, the same lobby where all that protest damage took place.